Hello, I'm Jon Sermon, a church leader based in the UK. And if you saw the video I put out yesterday and it went on to our church Facebook page this morning, you'll see that I was speaking from within the church building and beginning to open up the whole issue of thinking about when gathered worship in the church might resume. Now, in our case, the two churches I lead, we are working carefully through our elders groups and through health and safety representatives to plan and prepare without yet having a clear date in mind. Yet today, and I am recording this on Saturday the 4th of July, today is the day they're calling Super Saturday, or even Independence Day, a slight reference there to the significance of the date across the pond. And well, as we know, many restaurants, pubs, cafes, and all sorts of businesses that were under strict lockdown have opportunities to open from today, churches included. Now, some of the churches are in there straight away, and there will be places that have gathered congregations tomorrow. Some are taking a very long view of thinking we may not for many months yet, and some of the reasons individual churches come to these views on both sides are clearly valid, and each local church and leadership team have to think carefully what would be right in their particular situation. I was struck by something I heard on the radio a couple of days ago about, I suppose, it sort of culminated from a number of things I've heard. Too often, in my understanding, I get comments that seem to be negative and attacking or accusing, or seem to have their basis in the right to do things rather than the responsibility to act for the safety of others. So that, for example, we have the right to open our church building tomorrow for gathered worship, but we need to temper that right with our responsibility only to do it when we're sure we've got the building appropriately sanitized and social distancing provisions in place and so on. So it actually came from someone I hold in great respect, the cricketer, or former cricketer, Michael Vaughan. And Michael, well, I loved watching him. I do follow cricket a bit, and I loved watching him as a player, and he was super as England captain, and he's now one of the regular Test match special commentary team. And I don't in any way diminish that respect, but what I heard in it, I apologise to Michael if I misunderstood what he was saying, but he was comparing how it's possible to open up for certain things, but not for a game of cricket. And he used the phrase, get a grip. And what I read into that is that it sounded as though it was coming from the point of view of we need to establish our rights to do these things, and indeed all recreational sport is a good thing for us physically and emotionally, and I would love that we could be able to play cricket, just as I would love that we'd be able to gather for worship. But what it struck me as was that it was almost as if the importance of being able to do it was going to go beyond the importance of being sure we do things safely. Now, I'm probably doing Michael a terrible disservice in even suggesting that was what he meant. I don't think it was. But that's how it felt to me. And I think for all of us, we need to be aware of this, whether it's to do with going to particular amusement parks or restaurants or whatever it might be, and whether it's gathering in church services. We need to be aware that the balance to strike, in my view, should be influenced mostly by the good of others. So that if I have a right to do something, but inadvertently by doing it I might be putting someone else at risk, I need to stop and think about that. And I intend these videos to be all about encouragement. And yes, I want to encourage us to engage with the things we can engage with at the right pace for your individual circumstances, when you can, when you feel comfortable with it. But always be aware that however much we re-engage with stuff we couldn't do, however much we put on stuff we weren't able to put on, let's always do it with that awareness that we do it carefully, if we are believers, prayerfully as well, that we do it with a consciousness of protecting the other, avoiding unnecessary risks, and do it for positive reasons. When we gather, if we gather, we continue doing it on Zoom in the meantime, but if we gather physically in the church buildings, it will be so that people can be blessed by it. In the meantime, I pray a blessing on you all until we meet.